Miss Terri Breland is here tonight to talk to us about IEPs. She knows me well, probably more well than she'd like to at this point, but she is absolutely knowledgeable. People in your children's corner, it can be a positive experience. I've seen tremendous growth in Caiden by utilizing the IEP and behaviors that have been put in place and the team working together. So I'm sure it's going to give us some tips and things that you can know about advocating when it comes to an IEP. And of course, if you have questions, please let us know. But you as a parent are part of the team. And so knowing how the process works and what you can and can't do, or what the school can and can't do, can just open more doors for you and your children. That being said, thank you for being here, Ms. Terri, and I'll open the floor to you.
Well, thank you for having me. Let me just start off by saying I am not a public speaker. I have been dreading this. Not dreading it. I'm excited, but I'm just not very good at it. So, but we can talk. I am good at talking. So if you have questions, if things come up, please interrupt me. If you notice, I did change our format a little bit from what Miss Elise posted on Facebook, because the IEP tools are very important and knowing about the IEP, but communication is the most important. And one thing to remember is that students with IEPs are general education students first. So a lot of times our families, and we seem to sometimes forget that ultimately they're general education students. So just like any other parent would go to open house and come to the teacher with lists and concerns and everything that they feel like the teacher needs to know about their student, we need to do that too. So just knowing that right offhand and communicating with the teacher is most important. And let me also say my notes that I put together for tonight, a lot of these things we communicate with our teachers too. So we're trying to build that partnership, and it all starts with communication, effective and open communication. All right, so I'm going to go back to communication. But like I said, if y'all have topics you really want to talk about and go into detail with, just stop and we can talk. I'm a better talker than I am presenter. But communication, so start communicating early. A lot of times we don't hear from each other, and I say we, educators as well as parents, until like there's a problem and the problem grows. So communicating early, you as a parent, when you start seeing little things at home, touch base with the teacher. When the teacher, like I said, we're training our teachers right now, everything that I'm talking to you about, we're having these conversations about how important it is to talk to the parents, to reach out to the parents before the issues get so big that they're overwhelming. So communicate early, reach out early. And then also having that active partnership, knowing that you are a key member of your students' team. So having that partnership with the team and building those relationships. When you go into a meeting, I know it can be overwhelming, believe it or not, and I'm going to pick on Miss Maggie for a minute. When teachers go into a meeting, we feel intimidated too. So as parents, we know that it can be intimidating, especially if we have a big meeting. If you ever come to a meeting with Elise, we have to bring in the extra chairs, and that's okay. But so just like it's intimidating for you, keep in mind too that teachers are intimidated. My first IEP meeting, I did not get into special education. I actually had Justice when he was a first grader, and Elise used to bring me chocolate covered marshmallows, and now all she brings me is problems when she's calling me on the phone. But my first IEP meeting as a teacher were with high schoolers. So when I went into that meeting and the parents and bosses and everybody was there, I was very overwhelmed. And then talking to the parents, I didn't want to like talk down to them and explain everything. I didn't know what they knew, but they've been doing this for years and years, and it was my first year. So, having that active partnership, asking questions, knowing that, the teachers are just as nervous as you are sometimes, most of the time as well, and share what's going on at home. It's, crazy because sometimes our parents come in and they're like, I never see these behaviors at home. But then we have parents that are like, you're not seeing this at school? Well, I'm glad that you're dealing with them at home, but we're not dealing with them. But telling us, forming the team, what works at home for you, what you're seeing at home, and then giving insights of how we can incorporate that in the classroom. Of course, the classroom and home are to very different settings. At school, we're putting lots of expectations on. So, but bringing those to the table, you are your kid's number one person. You know them better than we do. So just communicating those with the teacher. And remember that really everybody in the room, their number one goal is to see your child succeed. That's what we all want. And then have questions. We always tell parents when they come into our office, you know, we're going to send you a copy of the report 7 days in advance. It can be a lot. I think Ms. Sean's longest report she's ever written in our office was 37 pages. But we're going to have a meeting. You read through it, highlight, write questions out. If anything is incorrect, we're human. We're typing these things. So we may have something incorrect. But bring those questions to the meeting. We're going to have people there that are going to try their best to answer your questions. And if we can't right then, we're going to find the answers for you. So have questions with you. Ask open-ended questions. You know, just don't go into the meeting. Well, why is my kid failing? Is he just not doing his work? Well, there's an issue there. Bring some open-ended questions with you to the meeting and then listen. That's a key piece. Listen to the parents and then listening to the teacher and then all communicating and coming up with a good solution for your student. Using we language, not me and not you, bringing the team together and all collaborating together to come up with a good solution. And then again, don't wait till an IEP meeting. By law, we have an annual IEP meeting and we only have to have the ESY meeting. So don't wait for those meetings. If you have concerns, and we tell our teachers, if there are concerns in the classroom, reach out to the parents. You reach out to us. You can have those. Now, remember, students with disabilities are general education students first. So not every meeting has to be an IEP meeting. Just like we have parent conferences, you know, you can call a conference with the teachers and it doesn't have to be an IEP meeting. So just communicate and reach out and work together as a team. Miss Elise, you want to add something to that? You look like you have that on your face.
I mean, I can go down two different ways here, right? Because I said at the beginning that I've had really good IEP meetings before where they were productive. The last one, thank you for bringing in the squad. It has been great since then. I mean, I'm getting regular communication, good and bad. We need to look at this. Is there any reason this could be happening? But also, wow, we have the most amazing days now school year yet. Got 100 on his test. I mean, we're seeing some significant progress. And I've had really, really bad meetings. And it's not always just because of a person. It might have been, I was in a bad mood. The teacher had a long day. It could have been anything that's turned the meeting off. But I've had meetings where I'm like, we're going to have to table this. And reschedule this. This is not working. We've already been in here an hour and a half. And we're having to go. So I would just say, educate yourself on your rights, the parent. Okay. I would tell you to read IDEA law, but it's like, maybe silly like that. So go find and click those. The rights law is a good book that you can plug into the book online. WRIGHTS. There's a book on Amazon, but there's a lot of different things you might not know you have the right to do. As we said, it's intimidating for everyone. And most importantly, you don't have to go alone. I almost always go alone. Powerful when I don't have somebody there like to cry on, you know. So I'm like, I'm going alone. But yeah, you can get your. I'd rather be in my zone and not have my husband or someone distracting me, honestly. So I go alone. But every advocate will always say not go alone. Just so that when you leave that meeting, you're not reaching through your head going, they said it this way. They mean it this way. Or someone else says, no, I don't think that's what they meant. Or, you know, you don't get your car involved crying like I do on this reason. I'll let it out.
And I'm going to say that communication, building those relationships. And like Elise said, she's had bad IEP meetings. I've had really bad IEP meetings. But be respectful and try to build that relationship. And you can have really good relationships. If you're not comfortable, absolutely bring someone along. We have lots of parents who call and ask me to attend meetings. We have a very large population of students with disabilities in our county. I can't attend them all.
MSPTI has advocates on speed dial. You might have to get on their list, but if you need someone there that can help explain, you know, the law to you or your kids' rights, they do have advocates.
Yes.
MSPTI stands for Mississippi Parent Training Initiative. I will say also, she did say this, I will emphasize how important it is for you to read the draft. They said they should send you once. Right now, yours is he's about to be evaluated, and they'll take those evaluations and you'll meet to review them, and then there'll be a draft. But usually, there's a draft, and then you have a meeting to approve the draft or make changes or discuss the draft. All those things, and you sign it.
The evaluation process, we have 60 days from that day to complete the 60 days.
Once the process is moving, I recommend that you review the draft, and I like you said, highlight it. Right, and I actually emailed the school. I tried to email them my questions in advance because I don't like being blindsided. That's why I like the draft. I don't want to blindside them. So I try to give them my questions in advance as well. And then of course more questions come up in the meeting. But that's collaboration versus I used to come in there guns blazing with maintenance and and those are my first few years and it didn't work well. So I recommend if you're not happy with something, obviously speak up about it. Go through the chain of command. I have no problem doing that. He's helping me do that. His teachers like him because his mom's not being mean. $500. That helps. You don't want a teacher afraid to help your child because they're afraid of what action the mom is going to take.
And that goes into being part of the team, like everyone working together and not working against each other and blaming. And so building that relationship. And there are different supports that can come and help you in a meeting. I would suggest go into the meeting and building the team first and seeing what you get out of that. But there are lots of supports for that to help bring in as well. So now let's talk about the IEP. I actually did think about bringing some samples, but I didn't. So the IEP is the Individualized Education Plan for students who have disabilities. And the IEP outlines the supports and services that the student will receive throughout the year, but it's like their plan. And then this year's plan builds on next year's plan. And our ultimate goal is to give all of our students the supports and services that they need so that they don't need us anymore. I love to be a part of meetings where students test out or the parents are able to sign them out because we've given them what they need and they don't need us anymore. But for some of our students, they take a copy of this when they go to college. It's sad when it gets to that point. So the first section of the IEP is called the PLAAFP. Well, the very first page is just going to be like demographic information. A lot of our students are very transient. They move between districts, neighboring districts quite frequently. So it's always good to check that page, make sure phone numbers are correct, your address is still the same. And then we get to the PLAAFP. See, I'm questioning myself on how much y'all know and what I should say and what I shouldn't say right now. So on the demographic, I'm going to back up. And some of you are going to say, I knew this. Why are you telling me this? But on the demographic page, the participants that are actually in that IEP meeting should be listed as well. So the team members that are there. So the IEP meetings have to have an administrator. They have to have a general education teacher, a special education teacher, and the parent. Those are the 4 that are required for every IEP meeting. If a student receives speech as a related service, if it's an annual IEP meeting, then the speech therapist or the speech pathologist should be there. But if it was a meeting that we were meeting to change a behavior goal, then the speech therapist may not necessarily be at that meeting because it really didn't have anything to do with her services, if that makes sense. Only if they were invited. So if we were there strictly to talk about a behavior goal, then we might have our BCBA or the person implementing the behavior plan there, but the speech therapist wouldn't be invited because it didn't have to deal with her directly, if that makes sense. But for the annual IEP, we're there to develop the student's overall plan for the year, which is going to include the speech services. So for that meeting, the speech therapist would definitely be there to talk about the progress from last year, the goals that we're going to add for this year, and the services that the student would receive. Then we go into the present levels of functioning, and we call this the PLAAFP. There are lots of acronyms in SPED. And the PLAAFP really just says what the student mastered, what they're really, really good at, their strengths. And then at the bottom section of the PLAAFP, we talk about the weaknesses, the disability itself, how the disability impacts them in the classroom, and what supports we're going to add for that student for them to be successful. And then also at the bottom of the PLAAFP, there's a section for parent concerns. And I know you find this hard to believe, but sometimes that is the hardest part of the IEP to write. I know when I was getting ready to write my IEPs, when I was a teacher, I would always send out an email to the teachers and to the parents. Hey, we're getting ready to hold so-and-so's annual IEP meeting. What concerns do you have moving forward next year? Parents would be like, none. He's doing great. And then I'll be like, okay, well, let's talk about this. Do you have concerns with him filling out his college applications? No, he's not going to college. So make sure that you bring those concerns, whether they're daily living, outside, transition, going to college, those types of concerns, but your concerns, bring those to the meetings too. And then, of course, we have our goals for our students. We typically write our goals. We write an annual goal, what we want the student to be able to achieve by the end of the school year. And the school year is lined out in 36 weeks. So and we send progress reports home every 4.5 weeks. So we typically try to keep on that schedule, but it doesn't always happen. Some of our students so we have our annual goal. By the end of the year, we would like the student to be able to do so-and-so. But then we break that down into short-term objectives, and we call those our SDIOs. Annual goals have to be written on grade level standards. So what we're expecting students to be able to do have to be on grade level. But how we get the student to that goal can be broken down into lower level chunks. So I'm going back to OT and speech. And so with our speech students, their annual goal may be able to answer who and what questions with 75% accuracy. And then, so we may start out with just 2 questions using picture cards with 2 out of 5 times. And that may be what we're working on for the first 4.5 weeks. But our goal is to get them to master that annual goal by the end of the year. And then, of course, then we have our services page. And your services page outlines whether the student's going to receive resource services, inclusion services, if they're receiving all of their instruction inside the. I'm so glad you asked. Okay. So inclusion services are students who mainly spend all of their time inside the gen ed classroom. And in the state of Mississippi, we try to keep our students inside the gen ed classroom as much as possible. But those students, we send a teacher in the classroom to work with them. And a lot of times, especially at the high school now, the way we have it set up, that teacher would be working with everyone. So he would get the help and not even realize that it was intentional. And we try to keep it that way in all of our classes. Our special education teacher might run a center and the students filter through. With the inclusion, the students can come out for a small portion of time just for some little extra help, but then they go back into the gen ed classroom. Our resource students, they come out for more periods of time. So they may be in the gen ed classroom to hear the core instruction, but then they may come out to work in a smaller group so that the special education teacher can break it down for them on their level. Well, you gotta expect him to perform up here. And then, of course, our students who receive all of their instruction inside a special education classroom, those are our students with significant cognitive disabilities, and they are taught and assessed on the alternate standards. But even with students who have significant cognitive disabilities, and we refer to them as CD students, we try to push them into the gen ed as much as possible as well. So, but transportation, OT, PT, speech, social skills, all of those services will be listed on the services, but you will also have accommodations and modifications listed as well. So our SED students who receive instruction in the general education class, one of their modifications might be that the student has picture or matching tests, whereas the other students are doing multiple choice reading. We're doing the life cycle and science. Our SED student in the gen ed classroom may be cutting pictures and gluing them to show the life cycle, where the other students are reading passages and answering questions. So that may be something that they have. Any other questions on
There's a lot of ways they can do accommodations as well. You know, I know Caiden, you have several accommodations for, especially in handwriting. Caiden, that's the number one thing that will frustrate him. But he also, and Caiden's 9, also doesn't do well on computer tests because to him, computers are games. And so his only goal is to finish as fast as possible in the game. So it's and he was failing all of his tests when we did computer tests last year. So this year we're now printing. That's an accommodation because most children in third are doing computer tests, but it's just being printed. And so when they printed his test this week, he made 100 versus last year we're 40s and 50s. It's just,
that's how it's clicking.
you know, and so just this very small tweaks like that sometimes make a massive difference. And even though he's mad that he doesn't get to get on the computer with the other kids, he's also proud of himself because he made 100. And I also sent a message to his teacher because I kind of joked, he's got a funny sense of humor. And I said, did you cheat? I can't believe you made 100. Well, then he went and ran and showed his dad. I made 100. I cheated. Oh. Schools. If he says this is why, because I made a joke that he ran with. But small accommodation. But when he does have to write, maybe we can do pencil grips or something like that.
And some of our students who can't write, and like I said, they're all individualized. This is where I get nervous because, like, and it happens with teachers all the time too. But you said we could do it, but we can't just do it for everyone. But some of our students, they don't write. They have text to speech. They type. So whatever it is that the student needs, we can add to the IEP. Now, let me say this. There are classroom accommodations and there are state testing accommodations. So just because we do it in the classroom, because we want to help build success and the student's confidence, doesn't mean that they can get it on the state test. However, we do want to, train's not a good word, we do want to teach them what they will need for the state test. So we don't want to give them all these accommodations that they can't have in the classroom and then throw them in and expect them to take a state test on a computer. Some of our students, we front load all the accommodations in the classroom, especially in our first, second grade years. And then we try to back off of them and wean them off so that they're able to be successful on that state test. And so that is actually an accommodation. You don't even have to have an IEP or a 5044 for. Small group testing. So the states changed a lot. And now our state testing, our tests are like 3.5 hours long. Everybody gets that long. Extended time, that's something we really, really think about. And we time throughout the year how much time they take on their tests. Because I know me personally, after looking at something for 3.5 hours, I don't want to come back the next day and look at it for another 3.5 hours. Like, if you didn't get what you needed in 3.5 hours, you're not getting it from me. So some of our students, that is torture for them. So some of our, really, actually, a lot of our students now have extended time in the classroom, but not necessarily on the state test. Because, classroom, we only have 30, 40 minutes to do it. But on the state test, you have some of them you can take all day on the state test, some of them. And then we have our least restrictive environment page. And we call this our LRE. And this is in the IEP where we outline where the student is going to receive their instruction. What is their least restrictive environment? How much time are they going to spend out of the gen ed classroom? It's very different for all of our students with IEPs. Some of our students attend a behavioral school, so they have no time with their gen ed peers. Some of our students only receive speech services, so they're only out of the classroom for 30 minutes twice a week. And so as a team, even though you may get a draft of the IEP 7 days in advance, you should get the draft of the IEP 7 days prior to your meeting, unless you waive that. This is where, as a team, you decide how much time is it beneficial for that student to be outside of the gen ed classroom. In Mississippi right now, we have 2 diploma options. Is that a question?
No, that's someone's learning.
So we have 2 diploma options. We have the traditional high school diploma and we have the alternate diploma. So even our students with significant cognitive disabilities, when they get to high school, they still have to earn a certain amount of credits, including electives that are with the gen ed population, and they have to take and pass the state alternate assessments in biology, English, and algebra. So, or we have our traditional track. So studies show the more time students spend outside the gen ed classroom, the less likely they are to graduate with that traditional high school diploma. So that is why it's so very important that we keep them inside the gen ed classroom as much as possible. And then on the IEP, we have the transition page. It's not up there because I wasn't going to go into all of this. How much time do I have?
We got a key, Renee. Go get the key.
So there's the transition page, and that is outlining the plan for the student for after school. And we're preparing them and giving them the tools that they need for that. And that doesn't happen until the student's 14 and older. And then we have the ESY page. And ESY, we have to have a meeting every year. ESY is not what we used to have at summer school. ESY is based solely on IEP goals. And if the student made progress on those goals, or if they need a little extra time to work through those, or some extra time through the summer just to not lose those skills. So you'll have that between January and April of every year.
And if it's goals, or does it have to be more than one?
It can be, no, it can only be one, but it's based solely on those IEP goals and how the progress he's made or the lack of progress he's made toward those goals.
Yeah, we supposed to do-
Yes.
And it could be any of the goals, right?
Mhm.
To speech goals. Like
Absolutely. Any goal on the IEP.
But it can fall.
Yes. Any IEP goal is up.
So what does the ESY stand for?
Extended school year.
Sorry.
Yes.
So so if he regrets in some of his goals, he could have the summer schools.
He would qualify you.
And it's only like 2 or 3 weeks.
Two or 3 weeks. And some years,
Probably 'cause it was empty.
Caiden loves- Caiden loves me and wants to work in my office when he grows up. Sometimes it's virtual. It really depends on the student and the goal and how we can best provide those services. But yes, it's for remediation for the IEP goals. Next slide. And then we're going to talk about advocating for your child. The word advocate scares a lot of people, parents as well as teachers. But the whole purpose is to have help for you understanding. My goal as special education director is that we provide you with that support and that we can be your advocates and that you feel comfortable enough with us that you don't have to bring other people in. However, as a parent, I know taking my youngest son who now has to go to neurologists, and they're really, really smart people, and I don't understand anything they say. So I know the feeling of needing someone there with you to support you and feel like you have someone on your team. But I do, and I know other directors across the coast and teachers. Can I pick on you again? And Miss Maggie would never want to feel like her parents didn't trust her enough to like come and talk to her with a problem or an issue or communicate with her. So that's not our goal. So my goal is that we can support you and help you understand. I don't have all the answers. There's lots of times I have to pick up the phone and call MDE. We see lots of different types of situations weekly. We're facing new things and challenges together. MDE loves changing things constantly, changing paperwork. So we're always learning something new. But you are your child's number one supporter. We know that. When you come into a meeting and you're feeling overwhelmed or situation has happened with your student, we're not angry that you're voicing your opinion. That is your number one job. You are your child's number one supporter. We understand that as mothers and teachers, because believe it or not, like your children are our little babies from August, well now July to May, June. So not always. If you would like for me to be there and you've had meetings with the teachers and you're still not understanding, absolutely. And anytime, if you have a meeting and you don't understand something, you can call our office and we will talk through it with you 100%. Open that line of communication right away with your students' teachers, with your students' special education teachers, the speech pathologists, the occupational therapists, just so that you're in contact. Start early. And then this is big. Celebrate when you can. The little things. It breaks my heart when we meet with parents and they're like, we just never get a smiley face, or we never get to go for ice cream. I told them if they did this, we can go for ice cream. I was like, okay, but they wrote their name on their paper. Celebrate the little things. They made it to 9 o'clock without crying today. So just take time to celebrate and remember the good things too. It's not all bad, regardless of what Elise says.
One of my students, he used to like to elope at lunch because there's a ramp in our cafeteria that he wants to on the ramp. So when he looked at me like I was crazy, but now we've made it first we eat, then we run. And so now he doesn't elope, he waits, and when he cleans up, we go over there, we run up, and I say 2 more, up, 1 more, down, he's done. So we're celebrating. It's a win. It looks like I'm not doing a good job, at some times, but it's a win for him.
It's a win for
Understanding
you
for-
too. You're not chasing him. And
It's a win. for me, but sometimes people look at me like I'm crazy because I'm like, ready, set, go, have fun, like run.
everyone looks at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So at least it's almost sometimes.
This will be celebration and successes. I first keep people hear us say over the successes, because we want from all out. We want to take you out of this negative space. We want you to see what if you're not willing to kind of communicate with that. And then we also ask everybody's strengths and get a whole list of strengths. What strengths did you say? It's an amazing process.
Mhm.
It's like
It does. Even for us as adults. I know Miss Heidi shares an office with me and I'm like, okay, what's the one good thing that happened today? Like, what's the one good thing that I did that we can celebrate? And it's really hard to find those sometimes. But we mark something off the list or so, even as adults, celebrating those little things can help.
And he would just light up.
Yep, that's what it's all about. And believe it or not, as teams at the school, we love challenges. Like we have some awesome people on our team in our office and in our schools. But when we find out the little things that help the students, can I use an example, Elise?
Of course.
So Caiden loves to smell, and I don't want to say lucky, but he's never told me that I don't smell good. But I try really hard when I know I'm gonna be around Caiden. And Miss Maggie, who was here last month, we were working with his teachers this year and we were like, what can we do? And I was like, maybe we can get a patch of material and spray it and then so we come up with these smelly markers. The challenge is where we have to brainstorm and like really, really think outside the box. I'm a very outside the box thinker. And then to see it work, like eat, and then you can run up the ramp. Like, we just need you to eat your lunch. That's like for us too. So,
Well, and so that was something they talked about in the meeting, and I'm sure y'all talked about after the meeting, like, because I know the meeting. But since then, we had a little bit of an incident with a student. He was sniffing another student, and he's curious about what does it smell like, or what do you smell like, or what do you smell like? And of course, the girls in 3rd grade, she was like, "Rude, don't smell me." And so he kind of clapped back at her a little bit. It was the whole thing. So Terri came up with an idea of giving him these tickets. I don't know if she's still doing it, but 2 weeks ago she wasn't. She said it was working. She's giving him these smelly tickets. And so he could get up from his desk and smell her 3 times a day. But every time he got up and smelled her, he had to give her one of his tickets. Well, he didn't like giving his tickets away. So like slowly but surely he stopped doing that. And she as of Friday's check-in, he had been skipping a lot close. So there's just like, it's something so small, kind of like Maggie was saying, like, let's do this, then this. And so that's the goal. It's just, upper social is a big deal, and other 3rd graders don't want to be snipped. Adults don't want to be snipped, but they understand a little bit more, So the smelly markers is a good idea, and some smelly stickers. But they were put on his hand, so he didn't have to put his desk. He could just keep writing, and it's working and having good days. I have questions that other parents might have.
we are past time.
Are we past time? Okay. So I know one thing that was obviously reading that first page and there's part of about your child, and it's usually like the schools observed, it's a mixture of the parents' thoughts, all things. Can parents ask that things be for the IEP? Because I know the first couple of meetings that I had with Justice System a decade ago, right? It was I just remember it being very much about all the things that couldn't do. And so through that learning process, I usually write a parent statement now and just ask that it be attached.
Again, everything we do is tied educationally, socially, in school. So we can't put anything about how they're behaving at home or something. But always, you can definitely make suggestions. I mean, you're part of the team. That's what you're there for. So absolutely.
We also want your feedback as well on these workshops. So before you leave, but if questions, feel free to ask Miss Terri while she's here. While we have her, she's very busy. There's how many students in the school district?
And 70 with disabilities.
I
So I'm going to tell our OT that because she only has 101 right now. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm not going to be able to tell her that. I'm not going to tell her. We do have students coming in, but yes, they're excited about that.
Yeah, and we can get you all the resources you need. I'm actually gonna go check my card too because I went to an IEP training with Mississippi PTI. I encourage you to find them as well because they actually record all their trainings on their websites. They're a little bit more, they're a little bit more for the parent. Obviously, we brought Miss Terri in because I do believe that it's collaboration is the most important thing, but they will tell you a lot more about the law itself, guy. But they're the ones that will, bring an advocate or whatnot if you need one. You don't even have to have an advocate at the meeting. You can send them a copy of the IEP and they can explain it. They have someone that will walk you through it and explain it to you. Obviously, the school will as well. And that's the last thing, that we want. So we'll make sure you're connected with that too, because they have a lot more resources as well.
And the MDE conducts a lot of parent trainings virtually now. Actually, they're going back to doing them virtual. So they have them in Biloxi and Hattiesburg coming up soon too. So you can go on the MDE's website, Mississippi Department of Education, MDE, and they have a lot virtual, and they're going back to the in-person trainings now. And they will also, if you need someone to come to the meetings with you too, they have a whole department of parent support there as well.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah.